What's up guys, it's Minx. In today's video we're going to do some more, we're going to hook up some GUI stuff, and we're also going to do one other thing because I want to prepare for the next video after this where we actually start implementing the spawning of enemies. Like we've already implemented the method to manually have it happen, but we're going to actually have it happen in the game with the menu. So this is going to be sort of like a preface video to all that, and I want to get a lot of stuff done it's less it's more interesting than the last video, but not as interesting as the next one, I could say. So, though there is something a little interesting that'll be kind of cool to see. So, first things first, let's get the really boring stuff out of the way here real quick here. We're going to draw some buttons on the screen, which we're already drawing them. We're just going to add the functionality to them. So case one is where we have our server settings, and that's what we started implementing. So we're going to go ahead and say if custom button, since it is exactly like a like an implemented button. Oh, and we don't need that if we don't want it. We could just do a tab here. This is going to be the God mode button. We could say God mode. And for one of these buttons, all we need to say is, we got to reference the variable. So throw mod base.instance dot config manager dot god mode equals not, so whatever god mode isn't itself. Now, the really cool thing about this is when we set up something like a if you are not the host and you try and get this variable saying, hey, you should be able to enable God mode, regardless of how many times we try and set it to true, it's going to not be true. So you set it to true, and then the player controller says, "Hey, I've updated," or "Yeah, hey, I've updated," or "Hey, I tried to get hit. Do I have God mode?" It's gonna say, "No, you're not the host. You don't have God mode," and it's gonna take the damage. So that's the beauty of how that system's gonna work. So we can just leave this as a one line. We try and change the variable, and the variable itself will determine what it needs to do. So that's great. Let's go ahead and actually just go ahead and copy this. We might as well. Because the other thing I want to do is, so we have God mode, and then we have custom sprint. I don't know if custom sprint's the best way to do it. Could like custom movement, um, which includes infinite sprint. I don't know. You can word it however you want. I'm not a big fan of how it's set up. And speaking of which, before we proceed, we're going to leave this for a second. Let's go back to the player controller B patch. I found out something interesting. So although the game says it defaults to 0.5f, somewhere that I didn't bother to locate sets it to something else, and it seems to be about 5f. So go ahead and set your default to 5F, because it is not 0.5. I was testing this and it's like, okay, let's turn this off and see what happens. And the player turns to be, like 0.5 is slow as shit. It's not right. So I'm not sure uh, why that's happening, or if he's got it set in like editor or something that's kind of stupid. But uh, you know, it's not zero point 0.5, and 5 seems to be about right. I didn't do the exact math or like run up against someone to see if I was faster, but it seems 5F feels about right. So let's just keep that in mind here. Going back to the mod menu. So custom movement is going to be custom sprint in here, and we're just going to do the same thing. Now the next thing we want to do is add in our actual speed modifier. So how does that work? We have something called what is it called? A horizontal slider, and we just want to set our player speed to that horizontal slider. So we would say tutorial mod base dot instance dot config manager dot custom sprint equals, or not custom sprint, wow, dot player speed, I'm over here like going crazy, equals GUI dot horizontal scroll bar, or horizontal slider, not scroll bar. My mistake if I said that. We do a horizontal slider. And for this one, we have to decide a couple things here. And there's one other piece to this that we also want to do, and that's because this horizontal slider doesn't really indicate anything. It's just a random ass slider. It doesn't even have a value on either end of it. We'd have to also say, or a good idea to say, GUI.label right above it. So we'll keep that in mind for later. Let's actually do the horizontal slider first. And you're going to have to decide where you want to put these things. So keep that in mind. I'm going to do mine at menu start plus item width. So I'm going to do it in a second row over, second column, I guess. Item width plus item width, fucker, comma, menu Y. And we've kind of decided that 100 is going to be like our height. So I'm going to do plus 130 and give space for our label here. And we're going to do item width for the width. This off. And 30 for the height because it's a scroll bar. And then the other thing we need to do is give it a, we need to give it a, the variable it's going to mess with, even though we've set a variable equal to it, we need to give it a variable to mess with. So tutorial mod base dot instance dot config manager dot player speed. And then we have to give it a minimum and a maximum. I'm actually going to set the minimum to be the player speed that I think is the correct speed for default. And then 75F for maximum. You could probably even lower that, to be honest. Oops, I am missing a extra parenthesis here. There we go. So that's it for the horizontal slider. And if it's too big, like for the line, you can just go ahead and hit enter here. And that'll bring the rest of it back over here so it fits on one screen. As for the label, it's not too different. I mean, it is different, but you know, it's easier. So I'll do a new rect, and we'll give it a for the rect here for something like this. We just want to say menu start plus the heck item width. We'll just keep going, comma. For the we're gonna do menu Y plus 100. Do item width, and we'll do 30. Out of the parenthesis this time, unlike last time. And we'll give it some text here. So I'm going to give it a math.round. Oops, we'll get rid of these quotes here. Math.round. And we're going to give it tutorial mod base dot instance dot config manager dot player speed. And we can actually tell it how much to round. So I'm gonna give it like a comma 2 to give it 2 decimals, dot 2 string. And then I'm gonna give it label style since it's a label. Now, since the label style that I wrote is coming from my other one, we're probably gonna see a solid around the text, but that's okay. So this isn't gonna look too pretty. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. It's not gonna be too pretty. So please, if you're writing the menu on your own and you're like, oh, this is ugly, write it how you want to. Believe me, I'm gonna have to go back on my own and probably like rearrange these and make them look pretty when I'm not like just trying to, you know, put things together for an example for a video. But anyway, this is it. This will work. This should work. Yeah, so we're gonna hold off on testing this. I want to go into the utilities and actually write our utility. So the thing that I want to do today is a little bit different. So it's not something I did before. It's not even something I even considered before. And that is since there's going to be a command for it's like, hey, I want to spawn this enemy. We need to see how different that enemy is from, or how different what that person typed in is from an enemy. So for example, let's say you type in, I don't know, rooster instead of jester, for example. It should spit out a jester. And there's a way to do that. Now it is I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna try and explain everything that every line of code that we're gonna write today because it's complicated, okay? It is the way that it was the person who wrote that's a genius. We're gonna be using something called the LevenShtein method to determine how to determine the differences between strings. To determine how different one string is from the other, we get three operations: insert a character, delete a character, replace a character. And the idea of the algorithm, or the goal of the algorithm, is to use the least amount of those three actions, insert, delete, or replace, to get string A to string B. And then you have you can add one for each time you take one of those actions and say, hey, this is how different the string is as an integer. So it's 5 different or 10 different or something like that. And we can use that to determine, hey, this is closer to the crawler, which is the fucking thumper thingy, than it is to anything else. Let's go ahead and spawn in a crawler instead of something else, just as an example. So that means we don't have to necessarily, I mean, we'll still have to, and I'm going to leave them in, but when we do like spawn enemy at nearest location, we're gonna be all but guaranteed that the enemy name is correct because we're gonna pass it everything through this filter. Um, so let's go ahead and write in the algorithm method, and then we're gonna write in a method that is gonna act as a layer between our code and the algorithm to make it like super easy. So algorithm, like I said, the first part is super easy because it makes sense and I can explain it. However, the second part, it's like maybe the variable names could be better. But anyway, so we're going to make this one private because we don't need to access it directly. So private static int, and I'm going to call this compute string difference. And we're going to give it string, we'll just call it string S, string T, because that's what the algorithm called them, and we'll stick true to the algorithm. So firstly, if string.is null or empty, so we're going to do the full null or empty check on S. Get out of here. Then inside of here, we're going to check if string.is null or empty T. So if both of them are null or empty, then the difference is 0. If S is empty but T isn't, then we're going to return T.length as the difference because that is the full-on difference. And then we can actually do we don't need to do it the other way because we've already got a S check. We could just say if string.is null or empty T, turn s.length. So this part is where this is everything that makes sense. It's either they're both empty or one of them's empty and the other isn't, and we just determine, we just return either 0 or the length depending on which one's empty and or if both of them are empty. Next up is we need to start working on this is going to be 2D array functions, and honestly, I think maybe with variable names this could be a little better, but it is what it is. So firstly, int in equals s.length, int m equals t.length, and then we're going to do a 2D array, so int open bracket comma close bracket d equals new int, and it's going to be n plus 1 comma m plus 1. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and populate the array. So for int I equals 0, I is less than n, so far good. We're going to say d open bracket I comma 0 close bracket equals I plus plus. And this is sort of like a if you've ever used Python, you could look at this as like list comprehension, because it's a one-line for loop that does stuff. I think it's a little different in Python, but that would be my best comparison. And we're gonna do the same thing for the essentially other dimension. Int j equals 1, j is less than or equal to. Oh, I didn't do that in the end here. I is less than or equal to n, j is less than or equal to m, d, and in this case we're going to do 0 comma j instead of the other way around, equals j plus plus. Fun. Okay, so you'd think things would start making sense after that, but no, they get worse. Well, they don't get worse just yet, but things start to look a little interesting. And if we really broke this down, we could probably figure out exactly how it works every single line, but we're not going to take that time today. So for int I equals 1, I is less than and equal to n, I plus plus. And then inside of here, this is where we work with the second dimension. So for int j equals 1, j is less than or equal to m, and it's j plus plus. This is where I was like, what? So we say int cost equals, open parenthesis, t, j minus 1 equals, so equals to sort of testing. So it's either equal if t j minus 1 is equal to s open bracket I minus 1. So if we're just checking, we're essentially comparing here, comma 0. So this one isn't super complicated. So it's either a 0 or a 1 cost. If it costs something, then it's a 1. If it doesn't cost something, then it's a 0. So firstly, we have a cost of 1 if they're not equal to the same thing. Then we're going to go ahead and say int min1 equals d, open bracket I minus 1, comma j, outside of the bracket, plus 1. Int min2 equals d, I comma j minus 1, outside of the bracket, plus 1. Okay, and then for this last one, min3, int min3 equals d, I minus 1, comma j minus 1, outside of bracket, plus cost. And I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know exactly what those 3 lines are doing exactly what they are supposed to calculate. I mean, obviously I know what they're supposed to calculate at the end of the day, but I have no, I have not decided to break it down, and I don't know if we're actually going to go through and break all that down ever. I don't think anyone here is too interested in the LevenShtein method for determining the difference in strings, but it is kind of an interesting. When I was doing research for this, I was like, it's actually kind of cool. It's a common LeetCode problem. So equals math.min, and we're going to do math.min inside of here. So we're going to get math.min of min1 comma min2, and then outside of there we're checking the min result of the smaller of the two between the result of essentially which one's the smallest, min 1, 2, or 3. So then we go ahead and get out of the for loop and we return d open bracket n comma m. Now if you're scared about typing this incorrectly, that's okay. I'll probably put this method as well as our layer method, I guess you could say, in the GitHub as well, because I think this is a little interesting. So we're going to go ahead and save this for now. And let's do an internal static string. And we'll just say something for us to use. We're going to say get best enemy match. Wow. Match. And let's take a string name for the enemy name. And this is a lot simpler. This one we should be able to follow along here. String result equals string.empty. So we have a result, and we're just going to return that result at the end of the method. We're going to do a list of spawnable enemy with rarity. All enemies equals new list. I had originally set this up to be equal to a list and then add the other list, but I was getting some errors, and then I don't think this was part of it. But I ended up adding this or changing this to look like this instead. So add range, and I had not gone back and fixed it. So you could set this equal to like the indoor enemy list and then just add the outdoor enemy list if you prefer to do it in 2 lines. Not that it really matters. Tutorial mod base.instance.indoor enemy list. And note we're using add range, not add, because we don't add a list, or if we don't add a list like that, we have to add range. It's a different operation. Then we do outdoor enemy list. Okay. Then the next thing I want to do is give us an int smallest difference. Now, equals 1,000. I'm just gonna do, well, I'll do 10,000. We don't really need to go this high because our names are like 5, 6 long, but just in case, we want to make sure that we always get a result. Even if that result is a bad result, we want a result. You know, if I type in coffee cup, I should probably get, I don't know what I'm going to end up getting, but I'll get something. And it better be lower than 10,000. It better be lower than our smallest difference, because if we don't have something that's lower, then we're going to end up not getting a result. So if result is empty, that's a problem. So even if it's not a good answer, it's going to give us an answer. So for each spawnable enemy with rarity enemy and all enemies. And we've done something like this before. If you remember back when we checked the spawn enemy at nearest location to calculate the nearest enemy, we're checking the lowest number here. It's the same principal. We just don't have the same types of variables we're working with. So if current amount is equal to compute string difference, and it's going to be name, so what we passed into this method, and then we're going to check the enemy type enemy name. If current amount is less than smallest difference, then we're going to say smallest difference equals current amount, and result equals enemy type enemy name. Okay, and then it will return result. Result may be empty, but that is okay. Okay, result should never be empty. Even if, like I said, even if it's a shitty result. For example, we type in coffee cup, we should get something. So, you know, be that as it may, let's go ahead and do some testing. So let's do quick menu manager. And one thing to note with this is this won't just provide this result until after we are loaded into a game and our menu has or our list have populated. So we have to bear that in mind. That was actually what was causing my error. I forgot about that. So let's go ahead and I just want to see. So we're going to give it some examples of things that we have an expected result from. So we say tutorial modbase.mls.loginfo. So have it print out however you like to print out things. And I'm going to do GameMaster utilities.getBestEnemyMatch. And I'm going to do Kraggler for crawler. And we'll just copy and paste this. I'm going to do, I think I said rooster for jester, so we're going to do that. We're going to do rilg for girl. It's almost like backwards for that little demon thing. And then I'm going to do some more gibberish stuff. So like, I don't know, fosgag. Hopefully that's not too much. I don't know. That's good. That's, that should be forest giant, right? That should be what we'd expect. And then I am actually super curious if we do this one more time. I want to do like what I say, coffee cup. I imagine it's gonna give us a forest giant again because the length maybe. I don't know actually. What it would determine is the smallest. And we'll give it like one more. So like for example, I think the official term and the IL spy here for the one thing is a spring head, right? Spring man. So we're gonna do coil and see what happens. So coil head. We'll see what happens with that. So I wanted to give it some expected. I have an idea of what the first four are gonna say. I'm not sure what the last two are gonna do. Go ahead and do that. Go to our debug. Refresh here. Go over here. And let's test it out. Okay. So because of how we set this up, it should be printing out what we say. Just printing out the result. So host, confirm. Okay. And this is where I was testing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to test here. That's what's causing errors. So I have to start the game. Because this is what loads the actual enemies into the list. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my menu now. And okay. So let's pull this open. So we got, if we look at the code here, see what makes sense. So, oh man, this is rough. Okay. So we expected crawler, we expected jester, we expected girl, we expected forest giant. Puffer, a puffer could definitely be a coffee cup, and then a crawler could definitely be a coil head. Those that makes a lot of sense. Oh, I see where the puffer gets the thing because of the two Fs. I imagine that's why. But anyway, and crawler probably because it's a C, so that makes sense. Anyway, that's it for this video. I know we didn't do like a whole lot here. We've already, done a lot of the stuff here. It's not really much different. In the next one, we're going to add the enemy spawning to this thing here. So we're going to fix it up, add it to the GUI so the player can spawn enemies there. I want to add an ability to just spawn an enemy randomly, spawn an enemy on a chosen player, and then, yeah, that should be the next video. And once that's out, we're going to be doing our first early release of the GameMaster rewrite. So with that said, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.